expressed by Honorable Vice Chancellor. And dear friends, I am delighted to hear that your university is working working seriously for the promotion of Phule and Ambedkar studies under the patronage of our Honorable Vice Chancellor. And I am also glad to know that there are two separate centers. Normally there have been only one center in university, but there are two separate centers. The one is the name of Mahatma Phule and the other is in the name of Baba Sahib Dr. Ambedkar. Our Vice Chancellor has proposed that we should not use the term backward. But so far as I agree with, as far as my study on Phule and the study of that studies, when I go into the insights expressed by Jotirao Phule, I found a very suitable word, alternate word for that. That is given by Mahatma Phule himself. That is Bahujan. It is very, very powerful word. That doesn't have any inferiority, complex type or any, as Professor VC has said. So we should, why not we should adopt that term? And you know, my dear friends, there is a great potential in this word, Bahujan. Politically, socially, culturally, he was a great thinker. He has turned to make many terms. He has coined many terms. They all are very fertile, very highly relevant. For instance, there is another term, that is Satyadharma and Satya Shodhak Samaj, which he founded. You know, it's not easier to think about a term, about such a term, Satya Shodhak. That means researcher of truth. Other people were founding in those days the outfits like Brahma Samaj. The one person is trying to make you Brahmin. The another person is trying to make you Arya Samaj. And another person, M.J. Ranade, trying to convince you that you should worship. It is Prarthana Samaj. But think about Phule. He said, I don't want to make you Brahmin, I don't want to make you Aryan. I just want to make you the researcher of truth. What a wonderful idea. And also he propounded another conception. That is the conception of Satyadharma. And it was an alternative idea to the Brahmin Dharma. You know, we are Hindus particularly, but victim of Brahmin Dharma. So he proposed another term, Satyadharma. So my dear friends, I am going to present my speech or address on this particular theme. And before I start, but one more thing which I would like to share with you. And you know, Jyotiba Phule was an intellectual, was an organic intellectual. Professor Vice Chancellor has said there is a difference between intellectuals. There are various varieties of intellectuals. And one great thinker from Italy, Antonio Gramsci, has very categorically suggested there are two types of intellectuals. The one are formal intellectuals, like we all academicians, and the another variety, another category of intellectual is organic intellectual. We can use another term for this term, organic intellectual, that is public intellectual. Phule was a public intellectual, organic intellectual. That's why he coined many terms. He coined many terminology, and he also initiated many movements. You know, most of the social movements of modern India are indebted to Phule. I can enlist the number of those moments. For instance, Dalit movement, then inducted to Phule. For instance, peasant movement. Have you heard his book? Seth Karyaja Asur. From this book, there in this book we find insights of Phule on peasant problem, and from there we have a beginning of powerful peasant movement. There is another movement, that is women movement. That was also launched by, particularly the feminist movement. That was also launched by Phule and his wife Kranti Jyoti Savitribai Phule. There are another movements, for instance, labor movements. They also inducted to Phule. Lokande was a friend of Phule, who founded first trade union movement, trade union, association in Bombay. So with Phule, there we find many states, and dear friends. Actually, I have done a research, a full-fledged research on Phule, as the introducer professor told about me, that I was fellow in Indian Institute of Advanced Study, which is an international level institute of India. And there were many fellows from outside the country also. In that institute, I wrote a lengthy monograph on Jotirao Phule. And in that, while doing that research, I explored, I did research, discovered many facts which were traditionally known to the people, conventionally not known to the people. For instance, people say that he founded 18 schools. Jotirao Phule and Savitribai Phule founded 18 schools. But I found that this revolutionary couple, founded about 200 schools in Maharashtra and Bombay Presidency. 200 schools. Could you imagine? So this couple, particularly Phule and also the Savitribai Phule, did many pioneer works. He also started a tradition of Nukkad Natak. He wrote many Nataks, and he also started to play those Nataks. He initiated Dalit literature. He initiated peasant literature. His literature was not like of his other contemporary writers. His literature is grounded. It was a realistic based literature. So there are many streams which have come out from Phule. So my dear friends, today my address would be confined only to the one conception of Phule. In this seminar, you will be discussing other things also. So now let me. I have authored a very big and well researched paper address. So I'm not going to read the entire paper because of time constraint. I'm just reading the main parts of my address. As I told that my address would be confined to a specific theme rather than to cover the broad dimensions. And that is the idea of Satyadharma propounded by Jotirao Phule. As every student of modern Indian history knows, Phule was a highly radical reformer of the 19th century India and popularly known as father of Indian social revolutions. A title given to Phule by Keynote. He came out with a fresh framework of Hindu-social reform, wherein he, in addition to other things, propounded the idea of Satyadharma as an alternative model to Brahmin Dharma. Here he was different from most of his other contemporary reformers who strived for reforms in Hinduism without questioning Brahminism. Here is the problem. The Brahminism is the main problem. And Phule and also his disciple Ambedkar didn't hate Hinduism. It was their pattern religion. But they always emphasized, if Hinduism has to live, Brahminism has to die. That was the main, finding out my thesis also. I have proposed in the well-researched address that Phule's idea of Satyadharma was the outcome of his ground-laying and organic approach, which was based on a perspective from below, or that of the lower classes of Hindu society. Hence, naturally, his alternative religion transcends all artificial divisions, distinctions prevalent among the people based on caste, class, gender, community, status, position, privilege, physical condition, faith, opinion, food habits, or the mode of apparel, etc. The major thrust of Phule in his idea of Satyadharma was mainly upon the universal values of equality, fraternity, morality, and above all, rationality. Rationality. He was a very rational thinker, scientific thinker. And these values could be identified as the precepts of his religion of truth, Satyadharma. While discussing Jotirao Phule's alternative model to Brahmin Dharma, the most important thing to remember is that he presented a very different set of interests and a very different outlook of Indian Renaissance. The upper caste elite and the intellectuals expressed an ideology of Renaissance and also nationalism based on the bourgeoisie class, high caste aspirations and the great tradition. You know, there is a debate in sociology. There are two traditions, little tradition and great tradition. The high caste elites expressed the idea based on their great tradition. But there was another tradition, that is little tradition. Phule, however, represented the idea of cultural revolution, which was an outlook based on lower class caste aspirations and the little traditions. His framework of social reform, therefore, represented the desire of the lower caste for social transformation along radical lines. It is true that Phule was an admirer of some of the attributes of Christianity and was also influenced by the missionaries, but the Christianity as an absolute system of values was unacceptable to him. He was not totally influenced by Christianity. Particularly the Christian idea of revealed truth. Phule was a follower of truth. Phule was a researcher of truth. So he didn't accept the Christian idea of revealed truth or the divine sanction. As a matter of fact, we all know that Thomas Paine was Phule's favorite Western thinker, who was a great religious radical of America and whose famous treatise like Rights of Man, we all know. And also there is another writing, was also read by Phule, The Age of Reason, had marvelous impact on his mind. The whole world is my country and my religion is to do good was the life motto of Paine. He had especially drawn attention of the Western civil society toward the inhuman practice of slavery imposed upon the black people in America. Keeping in view of these facts, some of the serious historians of subjects like Rosalind O'Hanlon, she was a great, great historian, and her work has been debated till date. She suggests that Phule could become a religious radical because he was intellectually influenced by Paine, who was a great critic of Christian fundamentalism. Though Phule was an admirer of Paine and also of some of the Western thinkers like Martin Luther, George Washington, Lafayette, Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Parker, it, however, also comes into view that Phule, by and large, developed his thought on the ideological and cultural bedrock of the indigenous Shramanic and radical Bhakti traditions. So we also found great and marvelous impact of these traditions, Bhakti and Shramanic tradition on Phule, as we also see in the case of Ambedkar. Particularly, Phule was inspired by the egalitarian philosophy of Gautam Buddha, whom he hailed as a savior of the masses, and accused the Orthodox Brahmins of nursing a grudge against Buddha for their defeat at his hands. Similarly, among the Bhakti saints, he was greatly inspired by Kabir and Tukaram. We all know he was fond of the poetry of Kabir and Tukaram. Phule and his associates felt a deep bond with Kabir, who presented a radical critique of Brahmanism in his poetry, particularly Vipramati. It was a part of Kabir's Bij Granth. Basically, Kabir's Bij Granth and Vipramati was a great source of inspiration for Phule. He regarded himself as one of his ideological mentors. He was also said to have particularly fond of Tukaram's famous dictum, Satya Asatyachi Ma Kele Gavahi. It's a famous Marathi, proverb. Means to know truth and untruth through the voice of conscience. In fact, having taken inspiration from numerous progressive thinkers and scholars both from India and abroad, Phule examined Brahmin Dharma and his basic principle and also the current state of Hindu society through his own critical outlook. According to Gopal Guru, who is a famous scholar on this subject, his theory and method of hermeneutics was against the hegemonic and monological mode generally found in Brahminical tradition and literature, where there is no scope of equality for and learning from others. It is well known literature slavery. He has clearly defined Brahmanism as a system of religious slavery, which imposes amongst the same hardships upon the lower castes in India, which the blacks had to face under American slavery. So, having himself being hailed from the lower strata of Hindu society, here is a very important point which I have read. Phule actually comes out as to apply Antonio Gramsci's term, organic intellectual, because he himself belonged to the lower strata of Hindu society. That's why he emerges as an organic intellectual. In other words, his social location largely helped him develop his perspective. He viewed the problem of Hindu social reform from this perspective. He not only anticipated the hegemony of Brahminical religion and culture, but also came out with an original and, of course, radical framework of Hindu social reform to provide an alternative model to Brahmin Dharma. Some social scientists have recently claimed that Jotirao Phule, like Michel Foucault, who is a postmodernist thinker, we all know, and much before him, suggested in his own way a theory of hegemony in his analysis of Brahminic Hinduism. Foucault, in his power knowledge paradigm, countered all knowledge systems as regimes of truth. Propounded by the hegemonic powers of the time, as every discourse seemed to follow the well-trodden battle lines of social conflicts. I have quoted this particular word of Foucault. And the hegemonic Phule also saw Brahmanism as a kind of regime of truth. There are many truths. The one truth is propounded by hegemonic tradition. So Phule wanted to counter that truth and also propound his alternative truth, which was a truth based on scientific and rational ideas and moral ideas. So Phule saw it as a kind of a regime of truth and hegemonic system of dominance and exploitation for monopolizing knowledge, power, privilege by a particular class, which uses these to exclude, divide, and dominate other groups in Hindu society. He earnestly felt the need to step out the ideology of Brahmanism from Hinduism. Being a radical reformer, Phule wanted to abandon the religion of orthodoxy tooth and nail, and also provide an alternative model of the same to the lower caste to his lower caste fellows. The idea of Satyadharma was his alternative model. So this is just background of my address. Before proceeding further to discuss Phule's alternative model to Brahmin Dharma, we must also know that there was a problem in Hinduism which every reformer, including Phule, had to face. That was a very peculiar problem. It was a problem of how to distinguish religious institutions from the social institutions. There is a mix of both. Dr. B.R.Ambedkar has noted this problem in these words. I quote Ambedkar: "The Hindus are the only people in the world whose social order, the relation of man to man, is consecrated by the religion and made sacred, eternal and inviolate. It is not therefore enough to say that the Hindus are the only people in the world with a sacred code of religion. So are the Zoroastrians, Israelites, Christians and Muslims. All these have sacred codes, but they do not prescribe, nor they, I underline, but they do not prescribe, nor they consecrate a particular form of social structure. But here in Hinduism, we found this problem. It was a very difficult problem, particularly before the social reformers. So, Ambedkar is right. For instance, the root of problem of social hierarchies and inequalities could be traced in the idea of Varnashram Dharma. And this is a very sacred idea. Even the people who like this Brahminical tradition, till they claim that this Varnashrama Dharma was a very, very healthy and very healthy spiritual idea. So, because it is enshrined in religion. And also it was enshrined in the doctrines of Dharma, Karma, Rebirth, etc. It is quoted by these doctrines. So therefore, for reforming a caste-ridden society, one must have to reform the Hindu religion itself. And for that purpose, a dynamically radical approach becomes necessary for any genuine reformer. Phule was the first Hindu reformer who had understood this problem, and later on his disciple B.R.Ambedkar also, and accordingly devised his strategies of social reform. It is also pointed out that there was a risk of becoming anti-religious for reformers in such case. You know, Phule as well as Ambedkar, they both were victims of religion, but they never became anti-religious. It's very, very interesting to note. Like Karl Marx, they didn't went against the religion or religious values. So, for reformers in such case, but admirably Phule, despite of being victim of religion and also of his radicalism, never became anti-religious or anti-Hindu. It is true that he was not satisfied with the existing state of affairs in Hinduism, but he neither himself thought of conversion nor suggested his followers to embrace other religions. In fact, as G.P. Deshpande has pointed out, G.P. Deshpande is a very prominent scholar on the subject, has pointed out, Phule hardly used the term Hindu or Hinduism for denouncing social evils. He always referred to Brahmanism instead. He was a deeply religious man from the core of his art. His religious thoughts got prominence in almost all of his writings. For instance, his first writing, published in 1853, that was Quest for Creator. It was Phule's first writing, which indicates that he began his contribution to social thought through his insights on religion. And his also last book, a book of religion, of the universal religion of truth, Sarvajanik Satyadharma Pustak. It was also a marvelous treatise on religious ethics and his idea of Satyadharma. His anti-clericalism or anti-Brahmanism was not simply a result of the British policy of divide and rule, as some nationalist scholars propose, or missionary propaganda, as could be argued from a nationalist point of view. But it traced its origin in his idea of radical reform, and in the words of Rosalind O'Hanlon, emerged as the first expression of Hindu Reformation movement. Rosalind O'Hanlon compared Phule with Martin Luther. So he was a great reformist thinker. So it was a first expression of Hindu Reformation movement in modern India. It is clear to Phule that Brahmanism was a religious and more accurately dharmic order which perpetuated, rationalized and made sacrosanct the dominance of the elite belonging to a particular class in Hindu society. Needless to say that it was not attack on the Brahmins. There were many Brahmin friends of Phule, but essentially it was on the ideology of Brahminic hegemony. In the words of Phule, it was Brahmanacya Varshava or Varshavvad. Notably, Phule's conservative contemporary Vishnu Shastri Chiplunekar was a very famous writer of those days, and he was a great critic of Phule also. So Vishnu Shastri Chiplunekar used the word dharma in every practice or in politics and administration, where he defended the religion of orthodoxy and the superior powers of a particular class. Superior powers. Okay, I think you understand which caste in India I am hinting. Superior powers of particular class. It is the Brahmins, he says, it is the Brahmins that hold the key to knowledge. So these are views of Chiplunekar. Phule was a critic of such a representation of Dharma. Phule's alternative model to Brahmin Dharma was actually a sort of de-Brahmanized Hinduism. That's the crux of his idea. Chahal is a great scholar on the subject, also from this land. I think also from this university.
Yes, same.
It is a product of this university. Okay, your department. Chahal, a renowned scholar of Dalit studies, believed that Phule was the only person other than and before B.R.Ambedkar who thoughtfully saw the needed change for Indian transformation. As a result, he became the one person whom both Ambedkar as well as Gandhi. It's very important, interesting analysis done by Chahal. So both Ambedkar as well as Gandhi acknowledged as their own guru. But it was Phule alone who, in the 19th century, worked from a comprehensive scheme for India's social, political, economic and spiritual transformation. Unquote. The cultural base for a transformed India and also for a reformed Hinduism lay in cultural mentorship of Bali Raja or King Bali, a utopia of Jotirao, Govindrao Phule. In India there have been very few utopia. Utopia, you must be familiar with this term, utopia. So in India, B.R.Ambedkar writes a book, Seeking Begumpura. In this book, Ambedkar has analyzed these utopias of India, and in that book, she said that first utopia was propounded by Guru Ravidas, who was a great bhakti saint of North India from my region. He is very popular. I think he is also known to you people also. So, Begumpura. In this utopia, I would like to read a couplet of Guru Ravidas, where he said, ऐसा चाहूँ राज में जहाँ मिले सबन को अन्न छोट बड़ सम बसें रैदास रहें person. So this was the first utopia according to GOVT. The another utopia was propounded by Jotirao. So it was Bali Raja model. So Phule in his propounds this idea in slavery, Gulamgiri, in 1873 as an alternative model to Brahman Dharma. He made Bali Raja the mythical king of inhabitants as a symbol of oppressed humanity. Bali Raja in his usage was a peasant, the common man. He was an ancient symbol of peasants and a sort of golden age representing in a Marathi saying, Ida Pida Jao, Banika Rajya Yevo. You must be familiar with this, must have been familiar this proverb. Phule saw morality, equality, fraternity, prosperity, and happiness in the rule of great mythical king Bali. There are many mythical, heroes in this country. Ram was also one of them. But there is another mythical king, which is being proposed by Phule. That is Bali. This was his alternative model of social spiritual liberation for the Prof.S.K. It becomes clear that being a great rationalist and a radical reformer, Jotirao Phule wanted to change the entire pattern of the outmoded old Hindu religion. In his earlier writings, for instance, Brahmanache, Kasab, Gulamgiri, and Shet Karyacha Asur, Phule appears to have engaged in critiquing the old orthodox religion. But in his later writings, particularly Satyadharma Pustak, he also comes forward with his own idea of religion. In this treatise, he attempts to supersede the belief structure of Brahmin Dharma with an alternative understanding of religion and its practices. Sections of this book deal with nearly all subjects, for instance, true faith, proper worship, ethical behavior, righteous conduct, social and gender equality, and most importantly, his notion of Satyadharma. Actually, while dismissing the religion of orthodoxy altogether, Phule presumed that something has to be put in its place. Even a revolutionary culture requires an ethico-moral foundation. So, no doubt Phule was a revolutionary, but he needed an ethico-moral foundation for his alternative model of society. That is why he did not reject the idea of Dharma, but rather attempted to establish the Satya Dharma. As to him, the basis of Hindu society has to be centered on truth as well as morality. These are two major strands of Phule's thought. I told, Phule neither thought of conversion nor suggested his followers to embrace other religions. In fact, throughout his life, Phule remained a Hindu and lived and died a Hindu. But to him, only Aryabhats, that means Orthodox Brahmins, alone did not constitute the Hindus. But Shudra, Atishudras, Bhils and Kolis, all are Hindus. These are the words of Phule. Though unfortunately these Hindus were put to great deprivation and hardships by the orthodoxy, he therefore made every effort to bring together all neighboring classes, Kundis, Malis, Dhangad, Ramosis, Bhils, Kolis, Mahar, Mangs, under the one umbrella to wage a moral-driven and knowledge-based struggle against the Brahminical falsehood. I'm just going to rush. Despite endorsing a radical theory, Phule never treated Brahmins as a simply racial category, a group which is unalterably evil, but unalterably evil, but regarded them worthy to be accepted if they would have given up their claims to be the earthly gods. While thinking of writing of his book of religion, Phule found that there was not a single religious book in the world which contained truth from the beginning to end. Since all the religious books were written by human beings, it was quite easier to interpolate dogmatic views in them. In such state of affairs, Phule opined that every religious and revelatory book contains some elements of dogma in response to the dictates of time, place and situation, and as such result creates divisions, envy and hate. He further stated that if God had created any religious book on the earth, then he would have made it in a simple and universal language, and that any human being on the earth could be read, on the earth could read and understand it easily. We all know these ideas. He would not have created inequality between man and male and female also in his book. So, as a matter of fact, Phule's alternative model to orthodox religion was not just for Hindus alone. He actually came out with his concept of universal religion of truth. It was a universal idea of religion, Sarvajanik Satyadharma, to all the people of the world, irrespective of their different faiths or the organized religions. That is why all the ideas and principles of the religion appears to be flexible, rational, even to the extent that except truth, he doesn't suggest anything which looks untruth. To understand his deep concern for truth, we can take, for instance, his concept of God, which is totally different from the old traditional concepts of God. As noted earlier, he referred to him as a Nirmik, which means the creator. Thomas Paine states that everything that is created by the creator in the world is for the benefit of human beings. Likewise, Phule's Nirmik is also omnipotent, omnipresent and benevolent. Phule's Nirmik, like Kabir's, was conceived in radical monotheistic terms. He did not believe in the prophets or messengers of God as propagated in the institutionalized religions, nor he did believe in the theories of hell and heaven, incarnation and predestination. He begins his book with the injunction that people could never be happy in the world unless their conduct was true. I quote a very important poem of Phule. Truth is the primary home of all, the refuge of all religions. All the happiness in the world is the offerings of truth. Truth is the shelter of happiness. The rest is all darkness. Truth reigns supreme. Truth reigns supreme. Jyoti prays to all people. Do not give in to untruth. Those who are followers of truth are happy human beings. This was Phule's major contribution to religious thought. One comes across various words which mean truth in his writings. There are many words, many terms. For instance, just pay attention. Satya Prakash. These are the terms of Phule. Satya Prakash, that is light of truth. Satyodaya, rise of truth. Satyish, the godly truth. Satsar, essence of truth. Satyadharma, religion of truth. Satya Shodak, researcher of truth. Satya Samaji, follower or worker of Satya Samaj, Satya Shodak Samaj. So, it is also pertinent to note that the name of his association as Satya Shodak Samaj, and it is needless to say that his classical book entitled Satyadharma Pustak aims at defining the principle of religion of truth. He uses the fundamental spiritual axiom, truth alone trumps, Satya Meva Jayate, and displayed it in his letterheads. He argued that no intermediary was necessary between man and Nirmik, and what Orthodox Brahmins did attempt to interpose themselves with was in search only for money and power, and not for the spiritual well-being of the Hindus. One of his prime concerns in his book of religion appears to dethrone the priest from his prominent position of go between God and man. Another feature of his idea of religion is that it was totally based on rationality, as I told you earlier. Hence, Phule suggested truth and truth alone should be the basis of any religion or society. Without observing truth in daily life, human beings cannot be happy, and the kingdom of living is not likely to be manifested. As a true Satya Shodak, Phule preached truth throughout his life. In his book of religion, he laid down 33 principles. You must be knowing of those principles for the guideline of his followers. These principles are the crux of his idea of Satyadharma. I am not reading these principles. You should read these principles in his book. J.R. Shinde opines that Phule felt when the hegemonic tradition in Hinduism was to being thrown away, something new must be introduced in the place so that the new entrants might not feel a vacuum in the new reformed religion. In fact, the Hindu masses whom he was addressing was illiterate and highly ceremonially oriented. Some ceremonies and rituals were therefore necessary to satisfy. Nevertheless, he introduced such a new rituals which were useful for the welfare of masses and also contrary to the religion of orthodoxy. While going through his work, it also feels that Phule was a great advocate of human rights. He always demanded the rights of all men and women must be honored and showed. In this context, his mentor Thomas Paine's rights of men again appears to be a great source of inspiration to him. When we cast a glance on Satyadharma or any kind of his other major writings, it strikingly appears that he always pleaded for human rights for all individuals. His basic argument in this respect was that since our Creator has created all of us as a free human beings, the human rights are bestowed to all of us as natural rights. He further argued that if our Creator has written a holy book, he would have surely and impartially ensured human rights of all in it. He has particularly preached the idea of human rights in the principles enshrined in the book, where he opines that the natural rights are inherent in all human beings, regardless of all artificial divisions, distinctions based on caste, gender, community, class, faith, etc. He demanded the dominant classes who had enslaved the lower classes for generations to restore their due human rights immediately. He did not hate them. He did not hate the Brahmins. It is notable, and was kind enough to forgive them if they would restore the human rights to lower castes and lower classes. Phule was perhaps the first Indian thinker who pleaded the equal rights for both men and women and openly, and therefore anticipated the UN Charter of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. A true champion of human rights, Phule had deep sympathy for the depressed classes. He also preached for the upliftment of untouchables. Therefore, he taught in his religion of truth that those who do not exploit poor and downtrodden people, either in the name of religion or because of astrological superstitions, are the followers of truth. Similarly, those who do not look down upon the untouchable people like oblats, etc., are the followers of truth. Thus, Phule objected to all kind of degradation of one human being by another human being. To Phule, a true faith gives a vision to people to make deep self-introspection and immediate a path of true ethical conduct. Phule opines that illiterate people do not know which factors affect Phule opined that illiterate people do not know which factors affect on the progress of human beings. Even the Brahmin priests who exploit the lower castes and behave with them contemptibly are actually doing this in ignorance. But the right education and for love and charity would also enlighten them about the true religion. Actually, according to Phule, educating the downtrodden was a remedy to almost each and every problem that they were facing. As noted earlier, poverty and exploitation of the Shudras was according to him chiefly due to the lack of education. Hence, he not only emphasized the issue of educating the lower classes in the principle of the religion of truth, but he also declared education as a remedial big code for not setting wrongs done to them in the past. And we all know the famous poem, which actually are the opening lines of Shetkaryacha Asur, Vidya Bina, Mati Geli to Niti Geli to Gati Geli to Vitt Gela to Shudra Dase Dasai Tne Sare Arat Akeli Avidyane Dai. So he was so much certain about his remedy, this remedy of education that and knowledge, that he even predicted that when the downtrodden would be educated and to learn the tenets of true knowledge, one day a person of saintly character or a true follower of truth will arise from them and will glorify our names. So this was prediction of Phule. Definitely this was the prediction of a true Mahatma, a follower of truth, which later on came to be true in the rise of Dr. B.R.Ambedkar, the champion of weaker sections, from among the ranks of untouchables, who really straw flowers on the grave of Mahatma Phule. These are the words of Phule. Who really strew flowers on the grave, over the grave of Mahatma Phule, when he declared that that Mix Phule was one of his three great gurus, other than being Mahatma Buddha and Mahatma Kabir. Quite interestingly, apart from Phule, Mahatma Gandhi also took inspiration from Phule, particularly from his concept of truth. Everyone knows that Gandhi was also a follower of truth. In beginning, he worshipped God as a truth. It is not noted. He worshipped God as a truth, but interestingly, after some time, he changed his view and corrected himself and said, in fact, it is more correct to say that truth is God rather than to say God is truth. So, Gandhi came closer to Phule this way. Phule's formulation of dharma are simple and straightforward and create, as in a sense, to use the words of G.P. Deshpande, a public of equalitarian dharma. I'm just going to conclude. In sum, Jotirao Phule wanted to destroy the old pattern of orthodox religion among Hindus. He believed that man makes religion, religion doesn't make man. His concept of religion mainly focused on the emancipation of man, particularly the downtrodden, from the age-old established order. Hence, his religious teachings aim at the upliftment of the disadvantaged lower caste and women. All of his 33 principles meant for truth seekers indicate that he was chiefly concerned for the cause of the oppressed humanity. Phule's mind could be best explained Phule's mind could be best explained using the word of Jittu Krishna Swami. I quote Krishna Swami, the religion is not the mind that goes to churches, temples, mosques, nor it is a religious mind that holds nor it is a religious mind that holds to certain form of beliefs, dogmas, etc. Not being nationalistic. Okay, last line. Not being nationalistic, not being conditioned by its environment. Such a mind has no horizons, no limits. It is explosive, new, young, fresh and innocent. Unquote. Being an explosive and fresh and innocent religious man, Phule advanced his framework of socio-religious reforms, wherein he coined, as has been noted, his fresh concept of equality, reform and religion, particularly for the Hindus who were the victims of Brahmanism. In short, He envisioned a popular form of reformed Hinduism, wherein he dreamt of an egalitarian and moral society based on his conception of the religion of truth. Thank you all.
That was really a in-depth analysis and research work that was presented by Professor Chahal.